Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I apologize for bringing this out so late. I know I promised I'd bring this out at the beginning of the month, but I've just been so busy lately. And not to mention, like, my schedule's just been really cramped because of some personal reasons. But yeah, I finally decided to get you guys the Dark World deck as promised. I did make some changes, mostly in the extra deck, which you'll find I think is pretty cool. And I did make one minor change in the main deck itself, but overall it's structurally the same deck as before. And yeah, considering that Cyberstorm Access is now legal, there's a lot of new decks that just popped up in the format, like Super Heavy Samurai. Uh, uh, Teller Knights also got some pretty good support. So I haven't seen a matchup with that just yet, but hopefully I do, because I really want to see like how good the deck really is. But as far as everything else, like, we still have branded a deck, which got a massive boost, and I know because I actually got some of the cards and they're insane. Cashier is still a thing. We still got trap tricks in the format. Like, there's just so much variety, and I love it. But and don't worry, I will bring you guys my branded Despia deck. It's pretty much ready to go. I just need to record it. And oh, one last thing. Now, I did say that I was gonna do a test hand portion of the video, like, because like I want to do deck profiles and test hands all in one video. But for this deck only, I'm gonna do a test hand video separately because the combos take forever, and I'm only going to be doing one test hand per deck anyway. So, but yeah, like, if like once I showcase like what this deck really does, you'll see like why I decided to make it one separate video, because yeah, it takes a while. But anyway, the gimmick with Dark World is that, you generally want to keep discarding your Dark World monsters or your dangers to kick off your effects and keep drawing new cards. Now, bear in mind, Droll Lockbird is going to be in a lot of main decks, so you got to watch out for that. Sadly to say, I can't really do much against it, simply because, like, if it hits me at the right moment, then yeah, I'm kind of stuck. But that doesn't mean like your turn is over. So like, as long as you kind of like think outside the box on what else you could do, like, you should be able to last out a turn and just pick up with have a follow up for our next turn. So anyway, figured I'd share with you guys what I came up with, and let's get started. So my main deck is still 40 cards, starting off with 2 copies of Grapha and 2 copies of Rainbow. And the reason I'm bringing these two guys out together is simply because they kind of do the same thing in terms of their summoning condition. But with Grapha, if it's discarded, you get to pop up a card on your opponent's side of the field. If Rainbow's discarded, you can add any level 5 or higher Dark World monster. So you can search out another copy of Grapha, or you can search out Silva, which actually comes to our next card. 2 copies of Silva. And I like these guys because they kind of they actually do perform a perpetual loop, as you can say, because Grapha and Rainbow's effect to bounce back a Dark World monster is not actually an effect. It's actually a summoning condition. So like, if you can keep spamming out Silva, you basically have fodder to keep returning back to your hand and just keep going, And Silva also performs a hand loops, like a sort of FTK if you have Ceruli in your deck. And if you have a way to bounce it back to your own hand, you can kind of perform it again and just like make it so your opponent loses 4 to 6 cards a turn, or at the opening turn, and yeah, they're going to be pretty stuck after that. Moving on, 3 copies of Genta. Genta is great because like you can just simply discard it to add Gates of the Dark World. And one thing I do like about this is that you generally want to set up Gates as quickly as possible, because Gates is one of your main pieces of advantage. So yeah, definitely try to get that out as quickly as possible. 3 Snow, if it's discarded, you can search out any Dark World card. So yeah, that's pretty important too, because we do have a lot of cards that have Dark World in the name. So yeah. 1 Ceruli, I've actually been thinking about running this at 2, simply because you want to make sure you can perform the hand loop. And Ceruli is just crazy because like, it also makes Triple T live. That's insane, because considering it goes to your opponent's side of the field, that's the whole reason behind it. Decided to bring back Salamander Catalyzer. I decided to cut Danger Thunderbird entirely, simply because there were just so many instances where I bricked with it, especially against a non-back row heavy deck. Yeah, like, I just figured, you know what, let's get rid of Thunderbird, bring back Catalyzer. It's a great extender, it's a level 4, so yeah. And of course, 1 Zephyros the Elite, definitely a great extender piece as well. Alright, so that pretty much runs out the whole Dark World package, well, in terms of monsters. Now moving on to the dangers. For dangers, got to run the standard lineup, 3 Nessie, easily one of the best ones. 2 Bigfoot, great going seconds, also good discard fodder for your trade-in. Funny enough, these do not have to hit the graveyard to resolve their effects. So like, if your opponent's on Kashtira, you can kind of force them to activate something in response to the Bigfoot effect, and yeah, you're pretty much good to go. 2 Mothman. It's basically Dark World dealings. For the one-us, one Chupacabra. It's a Fiend monster, which is really nice. One Jackalope, and of course, one Tsuchinoko. And just to go and get these out of the way, I am running 3 copies of Lava Golem, just a great going second card in case if I lose the die roll. And you just generally, yeah, good way to get rid of problematic monsters. And considering summoning it is not a hard once per turn, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, you do lose your normal summon, but this deck almost never does its normal summon unless it really has to. But yeah, like there's gonna be very rare instances where you need to, and yeah, Lava Golem's just insane. And it's also level 8 too, so that's pretty nice. All right, from here on out, it's just spells only. 3 copies of Gates, as I mentioned. You got to set this up as quickly as possible. You banish a Fiend, discard a Fiend to draw a new card. And this is really crazy with Genta, because if Genta is banished while this card is face up, you get to special summon Genta right back, because Genta just states that you have to have a face up Dark World card. And this does have Dark World in the name. 3 trade-in. You could probably Allure Darkness instead if you wanted to. I just like trade-in a little bit more because I generally don't want to get rid of my resources. 2 copies of Triple T. I don't have Thrust, but honestly, I think Tactics Talent is just as good in my opinion. 1 Card Destruction. 1 Archives. It's actually pretty crazy if you manage to resolve it. You know, if you discard a Fiend off as part of an effect, you can discard another one and draw 2 new cards. 1 Puppetry and 1 Dark World Ascension, which is also pretty crazy because it's the fusion spell and it brings itself back just simply by discarding another Fiend. So yeah, these cards are all insane. All right, now for the extra deck. For the extra deck, one important change I made is like I'm only running 1 Grapha. After playing this against Kashtira several times, especially online, they actually almost never go for it. So I figured, you know what, let's play it at 1. Even if I do lose it, it's not the end of the world. I got plenty of other cards that are just equally as insane as this one. It's just great disruption because it turns any effect to where your opponent has to discard a card. 1 Muckcracker. If I had 2, I would run 2, but I only have 1, so gotta work with what I got. 1 Dark, the Dark Charmer Gloomy. Pretty good against the branded matchup, actually. 1 IP Masquerena. 1 Akashic Magician. For Nightmares, I am running Cerberus and Unicorn. And a new addition, I should have brought this on my last list, actually, Nightmare Griffin. Nightmare Griffin's pretty good because it cycles back one of your back row cards, especially like if you already used Accession beforehand, you can actually reset it again and just like, yeah, have it for next turn in case your opponent negated it or whatever. But yeah, Nightmare Griffin's pretty good. And also it's a floodgate too, so if your opponent doesn't have any, as long as monsters if monsters aren't linked, then yeah, you can't activate monster effects. And considering that it's not impossible to do this for yourself, like you can actually like put like 2 of your negations to either side of Griffin, you basically get to yeah, just essentially put your opponent in a lock. Usually what I always like to do is like, if depending on the hand, sometimes I'll have Nightmare Unicorn on the extra monster zone and have it co-linked with Griffin, and yeah, like your opponent's gonna be stuck if they can't get rid of them. 1 Saryuja Skull Dread for, you know, just to fix my hand. 1 Appaloosa, and of course Underworld Goddess. We are running IP Masquerena, so why not? It's basically a kaiju, but only your opponent doesn't get the kaiju. For my Xyz lineup, 1 Abyss Dweller, just against certain matchups. Actually does hurt Branded quite a bit. Against Dark World, like the mirror match, essentially it doesn't do anything because, like, again, Grapha and Rainbow's effects are summoning conditions, not effects. 1 Baguska, which is funny enough, is actually a Fiend monster. And yes, I finally decided to bring in 2 Garrus. I kind of realized, like, it's pretty easy for this deck to, like, burn out all its resources, and you usually live with, like, little cards in your deck, so, like, in case if you accidentally deck yourself out, this at least lets you skip your draw phase and just basically OTK your opponent next turn. 1 Hope Harbinger, and that pretty much rounds up our whole extra deck. Alright, now for the side deck. The side deck hasn't really changed much, actually. In fact, it hasn't changed at all. Still running 3 Denko Sekka. This is primarily against any back row heavy strategy like Trap Tricks, Labyrinth, just anything to shut them off from playing back row. 3 Chaos Hunter, pretty good against Branded, pretty good against Kashtira, and not to mention it's a Fiend, so yeah. 3 Dark World No More is a good going second card. Another card just to deal with back row and just in general, like actually against Runics, funny enough. Cosmic Cyclone. And finally, 3 copies of Skill Drain. I'm not sure if this card's going to go back to 1 in the next ban list, but if it does, I could always make changes later. But for now, 3 skill drain is still pretty good because you could just do like a beatdown strat instead. And yeah, it's just really funny. Well, anyway, that's all I got for right now, guys. Like I said, I will do a test hand video separately, and hopefully I'll get that out later today. But for sure, enjoy the deck profile.